Welcome to week 2, lesson 2, where we are going to add and subtract real numbers. So by the end of this lesson, you're going to be able to add and subtract real numbers and be able to determine whether my answer will be positive or negative quickly. So we're going to have a lot of situations when it comes to adding and subtracting real numbers. So I'm going to go through most of those situations here. We're going to start with adding. With situation number 1, if both numbers are positive, the answer is positive. This is very basic when you're just looking at whole numbers, just your basic addition that you did back in first grade. However, we're going to also be dealing with fractions. So this is a good time to talk about how to add fractions. To add fractions, you're looking at parts of a whole. In order to add or subtract those, you need to have a least common multiple. So the denominators need to be the same. So the 4 and the 9, we have like a pie that's split into 4 pieces and a pie that's split into 9 pieces. You're looking at 2 different sized pieces. We need to get these 2 pies having equal sized pieces so that we can compare. The way we do that is look at the least common multiple. So what does that mean? Well, I'm going to start with 9. It's my bigger number. I'm going to start counting by 9s. These are numbers that 9 can easily go into. 9, 18, 27, 36, 45, 54, and so on. And then also I'm going to count by 4s for the other fraction. 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24, blah, 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 blah. It keeps going, right? What I'm looking for is a number that they have in common. Hopefully, the smallest number they have in common. I see that that's 36. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change both of my denominators into 36. Now, I can't just magically do that. I've got to follow the properties of real numbers that we learned in the last lesson. So what I'm going to do is, what did I multiply 4 by to get to 36? Well, I multiplied 4 by 9. So I'm going to multiply the numerator also by 9. Now, you might be wondering, why are we allowed to do that? Well, we learned about the multiplicative identity, or the multiplication property of multiplying by 1. 9 divided by 9 is 1. So essentially we're doing 3/4 times 1. That does not change the value of that fraction. All it does is changes how it looks. Okay, so 3/4, we're going to multiply the numerator and the denominator by 9. We're going to then take the second fraction. What did I multiply 9 by to get to 36? That was 4. So then I'm going to multiply the numerator by 4 as well. Doing that, the numerator on the left becomes 27. The numerator on the right becomes 8. Now I have equal parts of my pie. They're cut into 36 slices. The first one has 27 of them. The second one has 8 of them. All I now have to do is add the numerators and get 35, leave the denominator the same, and that is my answer when I'm adding fractions. All right, situation number 2. If both numbers are negative, the answer is negative. So think of owing money. So I owe $7.36. And then I add in there another piece that I owe, $8.29. So how much do I now owe? Well, I add those 2 numbers together and it stays negative. So I now owe $15.65. Let's investigate now. What happens when one number is positive and the other number is negative? So what we're going to do is I want you to pick 2 different numbers and try changing which one is negative. So you're going to be basically doing 2 problems here. For example, try 3 and 8. Go ahead and pause the video, make 3 negative, add them together, and then make 8 negative and add them together. So what happens here is if I make the 8 negative, negative 8 plus 3 is I owe $8, but then I find $3 on the ground, and I now only owe $5. What happens if I put the negative with the 3? If I have $8 and then I spend 3 of them, so that's the negative 3, I still have $5 left. Okay, a thing that might help, the sign of the answer matches the sign of whichever number is greater between the 2 numbers. So negative 8 and 3, 8's the bigger number, so negative goes with the answer. In the second one, 8 and negative 3, 8's the bigger number, it's positive, so the answer is positive. Okay, adding real numbers, there's one important concept that I want you to see here. Adding a negative is subtraction. I want you to get used to seeing that as subtraction. So what am I talking about? 8 plus -1. That is 7. But another way of looking at that, I want you to see it the same way. 8 plus -1 is the same as 8 minus 1, just 7. All right, now we're going to move on to subtracting real numbers. Let's start with a positive number. That's a very basic problem. You've done that one for a long time. 10 minus 1, 9. The one that gives people trouble is the next one. 10 minus -1. Think of that minus as like a not. So I am not subtracting. So if I'm not subtracting, I'm adding. So 10 plus 1, which gives me 11. Two negative signs back to back makes a positive. Now, when I said there was back to back, what happens if we start with a negative number? There's two negative signs there, but they're not back to back. They're separated by a number. This is not a positive. -1, and I take away 5 more. So if I owe $1 and then I take away $5, I owe $6. What if I start with a negative and subtract a negative? Well, that's a double negative. So I'm not subtracting, I'm adding, but I have to leave the first number the same. So it's -1 plus 5, which is 4. And that is adding and subtracting real numbers.